Okay, welcome back to the channel. I've not been here for a little while. Life stuff gets in the way sometimes, so sorry about that. A young friend of mine, James, has asked me to do a video. He's an aspiring DM and he wants to write a story. So he asked me, can you do a video on how to write a story? So here it is. So I could start by telling you that there's a theory that all stories in the world link back to 7 different types. It'd be a long video. I might do it at some point and break it all down for you, but you can Google that. But the basic principle is that every kind of story in the world is linked to 7 different kind of threads. But we're not going to discuss that today. Now, I can't tell you how to write a story. All I can tell you is how I write a story. And it's a bit like writing a song, I suppose. Sometimes the words come first, sometimes the music comes first. Sometimes you get a little earworm or whatever. So stories can come and go in different ways. Now I'm going to tell you that the story is more important than the actual game mechanics themselves. When I write a story, I write a story that can be played hopefully with any game system. I don't write specifically for Dungeons and Dragons or a different rule set. I write a story that can be dropped into anywhere. If it's a good story, you can play it on any system, and if you've got a system where some of the things you can't really do, then well, you might want to ask yourself if you're playing the right thing. Story over sandbox. Now everyone's going to tell you, oh, it must be a sandbox. I'm going to tell you, don't listen to that. Now, before you blow a blood vessel, let me explain. It would be dead easy to drop a load of players into a town and say, crack on, go and have an adventure, go and have fun. And they'll all probably sit there and look puzzled, because if I told you now, go and make up a story, go and write a story off the top of your head, it's blank. People need some kind of a prompt, something to work with. So what I'm going to say to you is, you have a story running in the background, and the players can choose to go along with the story, and different things happen, and they can deviate from the story, and hopefully as you go along you'll have a few kind of tricks up your sleeve to deal with those, and steer them on the right path. I'm not talking about steamrolling them. They can do what they like. Han Solo sitting in the cantina could have chose to not give Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan a lift, and gone his own way. He could have done that. The world has still carried on. The Empire has still done their thing, but it would have all turned out different. So I'm not saying don't let them do that. What I'm saying is have a story running, and a path that they can follow if they choose to. At the end of the day, they've sort of agreed to come into your game and play along with the story. You're all there for the same thing. You all want to play a story. So don't just have, it's not just as easy as, oh, let's just have a sandbox, everyone can do what they like. That is harder for you to prep, because how you're sitting in a town, how are you going to know which way they want to go, what they want to do, who they're going to bump into? So prep is a nightmare for that, unless you're particularly good at being spontaneous. That's an absolute nightmare. It's much better to have something underlying, a flow going along, where at least you can understand how the people in the town and everything else are going to react. So we'll come on to that and make sense a bit more in a minute. So I try and take inspiration from other places. What I'm telling you now is rob stuff. Look at your favourite films, your favourite books, your favourite stories, cartoons, anything you like, and nick the stuff out of it, nick the best bits out of it. There's some great stories kicking around. RPGs have been around for sort of 40 odd years. There's hundreds of stories in old magazines, everywhere else. So just nick stuff out of it. You alter it round, you change the names, you add your own flavour, you make it work for you. So I'm going to talk about a story that I wrote. It's on the channel here, you can have a look at it if you're interested. It's called The Tower of Argoff Knoll. Loads of people have played it, and everybody has sort of said they really enjoyed it. So the big, how I started with that story is Lord of the Rings, the third film, Return of the King. I really like the bit in the end where they're climbing up the tower and they have to light the watch beacon to kind of let the Rohirrim know that they're under attack in Gondor, and I love the idea of that. It was cool. And I also remembered reading an article in a dungeon magazine yonks ago about a story where there was a load of watchtowers, and these watchtowers were guarded by druids. Okay, and the watchtowers linked 2 cities, and they used them to communicate to one another. The watchtowers were guarded by druids, and that was that. I can't remember the rest of the story, but I really liked the idea for both of them. So I had a seed of an idea. So once you've got your seed of your idea, I tend, I can't talk for me, I tend to link it into scenes. Now I sort of tend to think a good session for a game should have between sort of 3 and 5 encounters. That makes the game sort of between about 2.5 and 4 hours, which for me, DMing and for my players is kind of the sweet spot, and that's how I like it. So I aim for 3 to 5 encounters within a session of a game. So I need to think about 3 or 5 different scenes. So I've got this watchtower, and I want the players to go to this watchtower, and kind of there's something wrong with this watchtower. So I came up with the idea that a demon from an enemy demon has taken over the watchtower. He somehow got rid of the druids that were protecting it. He's in this watchtower. Okay, so right, we've got a reason to go to the watchtower. So the king of this city wants the players to go to this watchtower. So what's happened to the druids, and if this was watchtower so important, why wouldn't this king have other people watching it? So I thought, well, maybe he's got a load of rangers. So maybe normally the rangers keep an eye on the wilderness and they pop in and check on the druids every now and again, make sure everything's alright. So what's happened to this ranger? Well, rangers are just not ordinary guys doing a job like policemen or whatever. Perhaps he's gotten old, perhaps he's retired. So there's some rangers going around, and these particular rangers, maybe they're old and retired and they've kind of stopped doing what they're doing. So you need to find out what's happened to the rangers. So you've got the first scene. It's the king trying to talk the players into going to find out what's happened to this watchtower. It's not doing its thing as normal. They're quite concerned about it. The rangers have gone missing. So players go and investigate this watchtower. Right, you've got the beginning bit. So the next sort of scene, they go to the town, and they start asking around, where's these rangers gone? And they find one of the rangers. He's an old boy, he's kind of drunk in the pub, he's down on his luck, and he tells them this story about how him and his mate were up in the woods one day. This monster came along, killed his mate, and sort of almost killed him. He managed to escape, and ever since he's sort of you know, lost the plot in the head, gone a bit mad, and he's now kind of the local town drunk, and he sort of spends his time in the pub. Okay. So there's a monster. The rangers won't go near the woods anymore, and this watchtower still needs sorting out. Oh, the king, I think I added in that the king's daughter had been sent out. She was an elf who was head of the guards, and originally he'd sent her out. She's gone missing as well. So she went to look at the watchtower originally, and she's not come back, so the king's quite anxious and he really wants you to get it sorted out. So off you go. You managed to get the idea from the ranger. The path that leads to the watchtower. He's warned you about this animal in the woods. So you go up. Sure enough, this beast starts stalking you. You come to a little hut in the woods. This is the next scene. And in the woods is the old ranger's cabin. This beast is sort of stalking around the outside of it. Anyway, cut a long story short, it turns out that this beast is actually the other ranger. He was attacked by a werewolf. He didn't die as the first guy thought he had. He actually turned into a werewolf. So there's a bit of a social interaction with the players. If they go down that road, they might attack him. More for them if they do. A bit of a social interaction in this particular scene, a bit of talking going on. And they find the information out from the werewolf. He takes them higher up to where the watchtower is, but there's some magic stones around the watchtower that the druids use. And they've got some sort of magic on them. You can't pass the boundary, so it's up to the players. They're on their own again. So they pass through the boundary, base of the watchtower. This is the next scene. Base of the watchtower, and there's some sort of, you can see the two druids through the fog in the distance, but they don't look quite right, and sure enough they come and attack the players. They deal with these druids, get themselves into the watchtower. About halfway up, they bump into, they go about halfway up the watchtower. There's a little sort of bedroom in there. And the druids' bodies are in there, so obviously some kind of magic has come along and turned these druids undead. Their souls are roaming around outside guarding it while their bodies are here. Something pretty sinister is going on. There's a big ball in the watchtower, and when the players look in, it's glowing red. When the players look into it, another thing from Lord of the Rings, they can kind of see a vision of this other city in the distance that the watchtower talks to is under attack from the demons, or from some sort of hellish undead army, or whatever you like. Anyway, so they make their way up to the top of the watchtower to light the beacon, and attacked by a demon who has been sent by the general of this army to knock out the watchtower. He's put a curse on the druids. They fight the demon, blah de blah de blah. The druids get their bodies back. The elf daughter of the king is found wandering around outside. She's kind of a half wraith where she's been killed by this demon. and that's the adventure. So I'll split it up into different scenes. You've got the town scene, you got the so you've got the king scene at the beginning, getting the job. Then they travel to the town, meet the ranger. Then they set off on the forest path. They come to the log cabin and have the interaction there. And from the log cabin, they go up. They find the druids guarding outside of the tower. They enter the tower, search the tower, get to the top, and deal with the demon. So a story there. I've stolen bits out of Lord of the Rings, stolen bits out of a magazine. I've linked it all together. At any point, the players can bugger off and do something else if they like, but all of this stuff is still going to be happening. It's still going to be going on, and it's kind of tying them into a path. You're able to prep it because you know kind of which way they're going to go, or you know what's happening with the story. You know the characters they're going to meet in the town. The townsfolk are going to warn them about this ranger that's a drunk and he's a bit mad. Don't sort of listen to him. Don't go up in the mountains because something's going on up there. There's a wild beast in the woods. All this, that, and the other. So it's really easy for you to prep when they start doing kind of wonky things. If they go off the path, you can have this creature track them into the woods, and you can have that social interaction down there. So what I'm saying to you is come up with a story, 3 to 5 encounters, kind of link them together. And they've got a path to kind of follow, and you've got sort of avenues and ways to go around. If they start sort of deviating off, you can try and bend them back a little bit. You don't make it too obvious. I mean, you can go, oh, we can't go that way because there's cliffs, but that's rubbish, isn't it? Have a little bit of a think about it, be a little bit clever about it. So once you've done all that, I use a program called OneNote, Microsoft OneNote. It's free on the computer. You can write all your bits and pieces in there, and you can write them in separate sort of bubbles, and you can draw on there. You can link it with arrows. So I kind of make a bit of a flow chart of how the story is going to go, with a little bit in each bubble about each scene, who's in it, what their kind of motives are. Work out all the motives for all the different NPCs they're going to encounter. Grab the book for whatever system you're using, so your monster manual or whatever it is, whatever system you're using. Try and pick out some cool looking monsters. Reskin them if you want. If you use the stuff straight out of the book, a lot of your players already know their stats and whatever. So find a cool monster and reskin it a little bit. I used a cloaker for the boss on the top, but it didn't really look like a cloaker because that's some kind of weird bat thing. I made it look like a proper demon woman who was sort of possessed, and she started off as a coat on the chair, and then they went up there and someone put the coat on, as they sort of always do, and then the attack started and she flew around a tower picking people up and dropping them off the side and all kinds of mayhem. So find some cool monsters that you want to use, reskin them a little bit, just, you know, just go to town with it. Next thing I do, I write a bit of fluff up for each scene. So sort of I'll introduce the adventure, I'll read out a bit of fluff, and then all the players can sort of chat amongst themselves, talk, tell me what they want to do. We'll play that sort of part, and then as we move on to the next scene, there's a new bit of fluff to describe in that scene. Chuck in all your different senses, so it's not just about, oh, you know, you turn up at a town. Tell them what the town's like, what it smells like, what it sounds like, what the people look like, how they feel. Tell them about the weather, all of that kind of stuff. Add all that into your fluff. It all makes it sound a bit better, and it helps people to immerse in there. Their mind will automatically start making pictures of what this place looks like, and that's really good to get into the game. So that's pretty much it. There's lots of different ways to write stories. Some people will grab the monster manual, they'll have a look at it, they go, that's a cool monster, and they'll write a story based on that monster. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of players like to write massive long backstories. If you've got a group of dedicated people and the party's up with it, I would put it out before the game. If you're going to do a story based on one character's backstory, put it out before the game, because obviously you need to tie in the other players. Nobody wants to sit there like a spare guest at a wedding while their pal has a story dedicated to them. So put it out there, tie in other characters with it. But yeah, more than anything, my advice to you would be the story is the most important thing. Take inspiration from everywhere, blatantly rip off films, TV programs, books, whatever you like. Try and get sort of 3 to 5 scenes per session, link them together in a chain so you know what's happening. Work out the motives and motivations for each of the NPCs so that you can play them properly within the scene. Tie them all together, write some fluff for each scene, as you go along, and that's pretty much there. So I don't know if that's helped, probably hasn't. It's how I do it, so that's all I can really tell you. Anyway, I'm going to try and make a bit more of these. I've been a bit lazy about it. So let me know in the comments if there's something you want me to talk nonsense about. That's it really. I'll see you again next time. Ta-da.